Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo.
Amateur Traveler, episode 191. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about piranha, crocodiles, and adventure as we go to Venezuela.
One more cathedral, I got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not today.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we go to Venezuela with our interview today, I do have some news stories for you. A couple news stories about the Sears Tower in Chicago. It's getting both a balcony so that people who are afraid of heights like me can look straight down. Looking forward to that on my trip to Chicago coming up. And also, it's turning into a high-rise hotel, or at least half the stories are going to be a high-rise hotel, and that indeed will be a room with a view. And the next story, if you're flying in the future and they talk about standing room only on the plane, they may not be kidding. We talked a couple of years ago about airline manufacturers looking at the possibility of people flying standing up. Spirit Airlines, a 4-year-old carrier that is China's first low-cost airline, is actually seeking permission to do just that. The only good news that came out of the Yemeni plane crash last week was that there was a survivor. Originally, it was reported to be a 5-year-old boy, and I'm not sure why there was the mistake, but it was a 13-year-old who lives in Paris who escaped with only a fractured collarbone. She managed to cling to wreckage even though she can barely swim. And then if you're on a plane and they announce a delay because of a mechanical failure, the person you want on your plane was the one who was recently on a Thomas Cook flight. A passenger identified himself as a qualified airline mechanic, and so instead of waiting for them to fly in a mechanic to fix the problem, he fixed it himself. And they were on their way and landed only 35 minutes late. For links to those news stories, as well as other travel news like exploding breast implants and naked flyers, check out the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Diana Iguera, who has come to talk to us about Venezuela. Diana, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And first of all, I know I'm pronouncing the name of the country wrong, so could you say it correctly?
Yeah, it's Venezuela.
And you were a tour guide for some time, as I understand it, and that is your native country?
Yes, that's my native country, and I was a tour guide for around 6 years
Excellent.
in Venezuela. Yep.
And Venezuela gets in the news these days. In the U.S. press, it doesn't necessarily get treated very nicely. Why should someone go to Venezuela?
If you put apart the political side, Venezuela has tons to offer. In one country, you can go from the jungle to the best, beautiful, gorgeous beaches from the Caribbean. You can go to the mountains in Los Andes and go to the highest and the longest cable car. It is amazing all what you can do in just one country. There are people that just book like a round trip and they go in 1 week to 5, 6 different places. And
Oh, my.
so they go from Margarita Island to the jungle at the Orinoco River. And then they go from the Orinoco River to the Venezuelan Amazon on the jungle. And those are totally different sites that you can see just in 1 week.
Okay. Now, you have done guided tours there, so what would you recommend? If I had a week or 2 weeks, somewhere in that range, what should I do? Could you lay out a recommended itinerary for us?
My tours normally they will stay 2 weeks and they normally will spend 1 week like in Margarita Island, or they will start doing the round trip and then finishing 1 week in a good hotel, beach hotel, staying the whole week there. Because the round trips can be very tiring, especially if you go from one side to the next side. Every day you have tons to do. You wake up at
Right.
6 in the morning. Like a normal tour, for example, will be I would get my tours in the airport, in the international airport in Margarita Island, and then next day, for example, going to Los Roques, and that will be waking up at 3 in the morning, going on the plane to Los Roques. That will be probably like an hour by plane, and then staying in Los Roques like a couple of days. So Los Roques is an archipel north from Venezuela that is part of Venezuela. And there you can do snorkeling. You can do catamarans around. It's a national park. It's gorgeous. The waters are just amazing, crystal blue waters. And from there, after like, let's say we stay 2 nights there, and then the next day, we will go by plane from Margarita Island, from Los Roques to the Orinoco River. On the Orinoco River, we will get a boat that will be like an Indian boat, 2 hours in the Orinoco River or one of the affluents to the Orinoco. And we will stay in a camp, on the jungle camp, for like 1 or 2 nights. And then you will be there like fishing piranhas, going in the river, see dolphins, river dolphins. It's incredible seeing the monkeys in the middle of nowhere. After 2 days, you will get back on the boat, 2 hours on the river to get to the airport. And then from them, you will fly probably like 1 hour to the Amazon jungle, which is a different type of jungle. And there you will see the tepuis, that they are the tabletop mountains, and you will fly over the Angel Waterfalls.
Okay.
The tabletop mountains, if you see the movie Up that just recently went out, the Walt Disney, all the tepuis and where the guy goes to put his house, that is based on Canaima, and that is based on Venezuela, and how the tepuis, the tabletop mountains, looks like.
Interesting.
So it is incredible. It's like, it is an island on time. You go back like to dinosaurs era, where actually the tepuis, the tabletop mountains, were a big savanna, 1,000 meter high, and when all the continents were together of the Apongea. So on that time, with the tectonic movements, the continents went apart, America from Africa. And that's where the tepuis come from. They're just flat on the top. And each tepui has a different vegetation, different animals from the other.
So each of the, and I would call them mesas, tabletop mountains, has a different ecosphere than the next one over.
Yes.
Interesting.
The water of the river is like iced tea. It's very dark, but it's very clean. It's clear, and that comes from the acid tannic from the plants.
Okay.
And actually, that water is so clean that you can even drink it. But, well, of course, my tourists will never drink it because they look at the water and they will be like, no way. But it is the whole experience. You be there with Indians. You go to Indian communities and see how they live. You're not going to find nude Indians as you probably see in the movies.
Uh-huh.
But they live pretty much like just the roof of the house and then a hammock And then you see like all the kids there, and the mentality and the way of living is totally different. It's a great experience.
Okay. Now let's go back in a little more detail. You started us at a place that sounded very inviting, which was Margarita Island. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that's not named just because I can get margaritas there. So that's where you're recommending to fly into, this major airport in Margarita Island.
I do, but I think that from the U.S. there are not direct flights to Margarita Island. There were from Germany direct flights, and from Holland and from England.
Okay, good to know.
What I recommend is people don't spend time in Caracas. Caracas is a big city and is dangerous city. So I would say just skip Caracas. You have to fly to Caracas, to the airport. The airport is not located in Caracas as such, as without traffic will be like 45 minutes away from Caracas on the coast.
Okay.
And from there, you can walk from the international airport to the national airport and get a flight. Like if you arrive in the morning, you can get a flight to Margarita Island and fly there. And from Margarita, you can do a lot of things. Okay. Because Margarita is kind of a centralized part where you can find a lot of tourist operators that will give you even day tours to the jungle if you want to, or 2 days, 1 night, Orinoco Delta, Canaima National Park, and come back. And even in Margarita, if you want to stay there, there are a lot of things to do. You can do horse riding, you can do day trips in a catamaran to one of the little islands close to Margarita. Those are Coche and Cubagua. I think Margarita, it depends on what you're expecting. It's not a place, I don't know how to put it. It is a nice place, but it's not a tourist place as you will probably expect from the U.S.
Okay. Meaning that the lodgings, for instance, are a little more basic, or we're not talking Miami Beach is...
Yeah, but you can find all type of lodging, but you can find big hotels. What I will recommend is getting a hotel where you know that there are tour operators there, that you can buy things from there.
Okay.
And it's close to the beach, because buses are horrible. So, but taxis are cheap.
Okay.
So if you want to just go around by taxi, that will work.
And when you say buses are horrible, they're more of the second and third class buses that you get in Central and South America, more the chicken bus than the high-end bus? Is that what you mean? Or they're not reliable?
What I mean is like they're normally full. They don't have air conditioning. They pass and you can be there 5 minutes. You can be there waiting 2 hours.
Okay.
The people that are very adventurous, I always say that going in a bus in any country is like a sociological project. You can really see the whole environment of the country going in a bus. But you have to know what to expect. If you don't have big expectations, then you will have a great time.
Okay, so we don't go in a bus if we're in a hurry, for one thing, it sounds like.
Oh, definitely not.
Okay.
You just take a cab.
Okay.
Right now, we have control over the exchange rate. Mm-hmm. That means that me as a Venezuelan, I cannot buy in Venezuela dollars because they are controlled by the government. Mm-hmm. So when those kind of things happen, you have a control set by the government and you have a parallel rate. So, for example, right now the control is 2 bolívares fuertes, 0.15, I think, per dollar. In the illegal market, you will find it for 6 bolívares to 1. So I'm not telling you go ahead and break the rules, but sometimes tour guides, like people that you know that they're not going to steal from you, like a tour guide or the hotel, sometimes they can change you to parallel rate. Because if you change to governmental rate, everything is going to seem very expensive.
Interesting. If I go to a bank and get out money, I'm going to get it at the government rate, but I might be able to do something at the hotel at a different rate.
Yes. Sometimes hotels have something. Sometimes the tour guide or some employer is not legal, but because people don't have access to the exchange, if they want to send dollars abroad or to even buy things with dollars, you need to do that. So a lot of people do it. Don't do it on the street. If people are telling you in the street, I change, don't do it, because they will steal from you.
Okay. And then you went from Margarita Island to the Orinoco River, where we were fishing, as I recall, for piranha.
Yeah.
Which, my understanding is you fish for piranha by putting something like blood on a stick and sticking it into the water.
It's not that. It's not that. People think that you're going to put your finger in the river and the piranhas are going to eat your finger. No, it's not that way.
We're not choosing the weakest member of the tour group and throwing them in or anything like that.
Exactly.
Okay, good to know.
Or the people you don't like and just throw it. No, no. There are different type of piranhas, and the piranhas we have on the Orinoco Delta, they're orange or pink, that they are not dangerous.
Okay.
So, of course, if you have an open wound and you go to the river, well, you may be in danger. But what I used to do sometimes is I make my tourists promise that they were going to eat all what I eat and they were going to do all what I do. So we start fishing piranhas, and then after fishing, it's like, okay, it's time, let's go in the water. And we will just swim around in the water where we just fish piranhas. And it's an amazing feeling. To go to Venezuela is like to go to an adventure.
Okay.
It is incredible.
Certainly, if you're swimming with piranha, that sounds adventure travel to me. Yeah. You mentioned the freshwater dolphins, and basically we're going to the Orinoco River for the wildlife.
Yes.
Okay.
And for vegetation.
And then that's really true. It sounds like also for both the Tabletop Mountains, and the Tabletop Mountains are in Venezuela's portion of the Amazon basin?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called Canaima, the south of Venezuela in Bolivar State. The national park is called Canaima. And there are two parts of Canaima National Park. There is one that is called La Gran Sabana. It's like flat lands.
Mm-hmm.
For going to that, I will recommend just going by bus or by jeep, because there are several stops that you can make and have a bath in the rivers, on the waterfalls. It's beautiful. The other side of Canaima National Park, definitely if you're there, don't miss the Angel Waterfalls, which is the highest waterfall in the world. It's 3,000 feet high.
Oh my, okay.
Normally what they do is just an overview with a plane going over the Angel Waterfalls. People that have time and money, you can rent a helicopter and just go and see it.
And the reason why we're doing that by air is that it's just not as accessible by land.
It is, and there are some tours, but you have to go in rainy season.
Okay.
I remember well to go by the river from April to November is the rainy season.
Okay.
You can go to Canaima National Park, and there you can get a tour that is normally like 2 days, 1 night. And you will go up on a canoe, on an Indian canoe, and you will go up on the river and then stay in a camp. It depends of which tour agency you do it. You can sleep in front of the Angel Waterfalls in one of the islands. And it is, again, very basic. It will be like just the hut and hammocks, and you will sleep there, and then they have like common toilets.
Okay.
The tour guide probably will be the same cooking. And then next day you will go to the base of the Angel Waterfalls. And the Angel Waterfalls is so high that when the water comes down, I don't know how to say it, it's almost not water.
Okay.
It's a mist that comes down.
Interesting.
And there is like a lake. It's not a lake, but it's part of the river there that you can bath. And then you will come back. If you have the time and you're very adventurous, I recommend it. It's incredible.
Okay. Now, you say that's in the rainy season. In general, what season do you recommend people go to Venezuela?
It depends on what you want to see. Everything has its natural beauty for different reasons. So in rainy season, of course, you will see all the waterfalls totally full, which is gorgeous. But then in dry season, you have in some of the rivers that go so down that you have like small islands where you can bath and just swim there. So that is also amazing. Especially in Canaima, there is a waterfall that is called El Sapo that you can walk there and go behind the waterfall. And that is also an amazing feeling because you feel like you're going to go down on the waterfall, but it's totally safe. And it is incredible.
I don't want to get you too homesick for Venezuela here, but as you do get homesick, what one day do you think of that was the best day you spent in Venezuela?
Wow. Well, I grew up in Venezuela, so it's very hard to say. But when I was a tour guide, the first time you get to all the places, for training, and you see all that, like, I don't know, kayaking in the Orinoco River. That is an amazing feeling. Because you're there and you have the monkeys around, and the first time you see the Angel Waterfall. So I think the first time you go behind El Sapo Waterfall and you feel like the whole adrenaline and adventure going through your veins. If you like that, like in my case, I love it. It is an amazing feeling.
What's one thing you could see and you would know absolutely in a second that you were in Venezuela?
The Angel Waterfall.
The Angel Waterfall, okay. And what's one thing you would eat that you would know absolutely you were in Venezuela?
Arepas or empanadas.
I know they have that in other countries, so why are they different in Venezuela?
I think each country has their own way to do things. Our cuisine is very like the Colombian cuisine, I will say.
Okay.
But that is something that we will eat every day. Like we will eat for breakfast an arepa or for breakfast an empanada. Actually, the first time I went with my husband, we were dating and he's American, and we went there and I said, you have to try the empanadas. After that, we have to have empanadas for breakfast every day because he loved it.
We're not going to assume that everybody knows what those are. So can you describe the two?
Both are cornmeal, corn flour. Arepas is a kind of a round bread that you can fry or you can put in the oven. As itself, it doesn't taste like anything. So you open it and you put anything inside you want.
Okay.
You can put meat, you can put eggs, you can put just ham and cheese. It will be like a sandwich. And the empanadas, if you bend the arepas in half, then you will have like a round part and a straight part, right? So inside that, they normally put like fish. Everybody should try the cazón, which is like small shark.
Okay.
And those are very good. And I know that people are afraid to eat on the streets, but I think the street food, like the people that does that on the street and sell it, are the best ones. And in each state, we have what we call La Calle del Hambre. That is like the hunger street. It's a whole street with vendors on the street. They have everything from Venezuelan arepas, empanadas, or hot dogs to Arab food.
Okay.
And buy a shawarma or something like that.
I think what my recommendation for street food is you just usually find the one where the locals are hanging out, because if you're getting a lot of local return visitors, you're probably doing okay in terms of being healthy and
Oh, definitely.
it's probably good. So,
Yeah, I would recommend that as well.
as you're a tour guide, who's the most memorable person you met from Venezuela?
From Venezuela, the most memorable person. I would say, well, the Indians and Canaima. There is a camp that is in the north side of Canaima National Park. It's outside the park. It's called Arecuna. I will recommend everybody, if you have time or money, go to that camp because it's kind of a luxurious camp in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
And in Arecuna, I used to go very often. There is one family that the male of the family is a chaman, which is like a medicine doctor.
Okay.
It was his wife, the grandma, and the grandmother couldn't speak any Spanish, but she was like always happy and always trying to teach me things. So I used to go there with my tourists and I will sit with her while she was knitting a hammock or getting cotton. They plant cotton, and so they will get the cotton and put in strings to make the hammock, and I will help her. So for me, that was amazing because you normally see all the products already done, like you buy it, and you don't see the manual process when the artisans do it. It was very neat. And actually, her daughter put my name when she was pregnant to her daughter. So I have a Dianita in the jungle. So it's very nice.
Any recommendations on resources you would use to plan a trip to Venezuela?
I always recommend go to German web pages. If you find some German web pages in English, if you speak German, it will be great. Because Germans always travel everywhere. Everywhere. For them, it's part of the culture. They have to travel. My tour, most of them were Germans. And they will always have good tips about where to go, what to buy, who to talk to. We don't have many Americans going to Venezuela because of the political situation. Like, I don't think that a lot of American websites will give you a lot of tips, but I think that German websites will give you tons of tips.
Okay. And we should at least address it. A lot of Americans are not going to Venezuela because they're afraid to go to Venezuela. As long as they stay out of Caracas, you think they'll be okay? They should avoid talking politics? What would be your recommendations? Is this a good time for Americans to go to Venezuela?
Well, I don't know. I'm watching my husband right now. He's like, yes. It is different to go alone by your own
Sure.
than going with a local. So I will say, if you want to go to Venezuela as an American, don't go alone. Try to book a trip.
Okay.
Go with an agency to book a trip. That way, you will have the opportunity to go around and see what you really like, have the feel of the country, because people are so afraid to go. And then when you're there, you're like, oh, this is not that bad. As in every country, there are places where you shouldn't go by your own. There are places where you cannot walk, where you shouldn't go by night. So locals will always tell you, don't go this place, don't go
Sure.
to this other place. And so I will recommend people to book a tour if you want to see the whole Venezuela.
And I know you don't currently work for a Venezuela tour company. Is there one you would recommend?
Yes, I used to work for Venezuelan tour company that is called Sky Limit,
Okay.
and they are based on Margarita Island. And they organize trips. Like if you want a certain type of trip, they will organize it for you, and they will give you a tour guide.
Okay.
So that way, you know you're safe. There are other places of Venezuela that I didn't say in my tour
Okay.
that if you have time, you should go. For example, in the llanos of Venezuela, flatland, there are several great camps that you can go and see wildlife that are incredible. And I think the Andes is very beautiful to see as well.
And when you say
So-
wildlife, what would we find in the flatlands there?
In the flatlands, depends where you go, but you can find different type of birds, like thousands of birds going in the mornings or in the afternoons. You can find crocodiles, anacondas.
As long as I find them and they don't find me.
Those places used to be haciendas, like big
Okay.
farms. They changed those farms to be at tourist places where they have like a tour guide that will take you around. And so at different hours, they will say, look, okay, let's go at 6 and see the sunset and we will see this type of animals. Or let's go to find crocodiles. And for example, that's what we do in the Orinoco Delta at night with a flashlight. We go and try to find crocodiles. And you normally see them because you see just two shiny eyes. They look at you, and because of the light, they don't go down sometimes. So we go very quick with the boat, and this is at night, and when you don't have moon, it's incredible. The Indian tour guide, we normally go with a local Indian guide on the river. If it's small, they will catch it with a hand and show it to you. So you can touch it, and then we'll put it back in the water. I have not been in the places on Los Llanos, but I have a lot of colleagues that have, and they say it's amazing.
Okay.
In Los Andes, in the part of the Andes, is more like high mountains, and it's more seeing like small little towns, very typical little towns, and the people that want to hike. There are a lot of organizations that with a guide bring you to the mountains and hike. And it's a different type of vegetation than the one you have here in the U.S.
Okay.
So for people that like mountains, that will be very interesting to do.
To wrap this up, finish this sentence for me. You really know you're in Venezuela when what?
When you're having so much fun that you don't want to leave the country. Did I convince everybody to go?
And if you had to describe Venezuela in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Wow. Let me see. Party.
Party. Okay.
Yeah, we love to party. We love music. Anything is an excuse to put music and dance merengue or salsa. So, like, even if we are like in the middle of the highway and you have like an accident and the cars are stopped for 2 hours, people will open doors and get the drinks out and start dancing.
Okay. Party.
So I will say party. I will say biodiversity.
Okay.
And I will say adventure.
Excellent. Diana, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling us more about your home country of Venezuela.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
I'm going to skip internet resources because this show is already late coming out. In terms of news of the community, we are going to do a meetup in Chicago. It's going to be on the Friday night, the 23rd of July, which is 2 weeks from today. And it's probably going to be at the original Uno's Pizzeria in the Loop in downtown Chicago. So please send me an email if you're interested. That way I'll know just in case there is some change in time, which is probably 7:30 at night, or in location. My friend Linda from the Indie Travel Podcast wrote in regard to the Estonia episode, and Linda said, I was surprised that your guest didn't mention Compressor, the crepe restaurant in Tallinn. Oh man, that place is good. You can get sweet or savory crepes, and one is enough to more than fill you. Then you end the meal with a shot of Vala Tallinn, Estonia's fantastic liqueur. Linda, thanks for the tip. And similarly, Tom wrote in regard to the episode on Key West and said, I finished listening to your Key West show and I really enjoyed it. I really sat up when your guest mentioned that the most memorable person on the island is Captain Tony. I have been to his bar restaurant and really loved it. It stands out as one of the more memorable experiences I had there. There was a man there who was playing the banjo, harmonica, and organ all at the same time. I don't know if that's Captain Tony or not, but if it is, then I met him. The restaurant had business cards stapled to the wall all over the place. I don't think there was any section of the wall there that didn't have a business card stapled to it. Keep in mind this was over 20 years ago. Anyway, love the show. Take care, Tom. With that, we'll bring this show to a close. I certainly hope to meet some of you in Chicago at the meetup there. If you have other suggestions for meetups, certainly send them to me and let's see what we can do. I'd like to hear your travel stories. You can get a hold of me by sending emails to host@amateurtraveler.com, just like Linda and Tom did. You can leave a comment at amateurtraveler.com, or again, you can catch me on Twitter at twitter.com/Chris2X. And as always, thanks so much for listening.